Last time we created a loader state service based on RxJS state management class. Today we are going to make a button listen to that state and see what needs to be enhanced. We go back to our HTTP calling button and allow the CSS class to change according to a loading state. Bind the button class to an observable that listens to state. Create the observable, loading $. On initialization, retrieve the loader state and map it to the show property. Now clicking the button to initiate HTTP request also change the button CSS style. One thing we can do to enhance it is add the share operator to the original signal observable. All listeners now will share the single state emitted by the signal. Let's move on with a new listener, a pagination control. In common folder, create a pager.partial.ts. This is a standalone component, so import the common module directly to it. Inject the loader state into the constructor. Create a button with a simple state change. When HTTP is busy, prefix it with 3 dots. Watch our loader state by creating the observable property and bind the CSS of the pager element to the show property. Create a list component to test it. This too is a standalone component, so import the pager control directly. I'll just quickly create a route for that list component, and this is how you route to a standalone component by using a load component instead of load children. Back to the pager component, output an on-page event to emit the click of the button event, which is supposed to be used to create the HTTP call. In the list component, add the pager partial component. On page, call HTTP function slow1. Clicking on the More button should show the 3 dots appended to it when the HTTP is busy. Let's take it a little notch further. Let's add another paginator on the same page. Let each button call a different URL with different time lags to demonstrate the effect. Notice clicking on one of the buttons renders both buttons as busy. This is not what we are aiming for. Let's fix that. In our HTTP interceptor, we need to pass the source of the loading effect so that we can filter it out and listen only to the ones we want to react to. In order to pass something to the interceptor, we use the HTTP context. First, create an HTTP client token. Name it loading_source. Then in every HTTP call we make, pass the context variable as an attribute. Create a new context, set the source token to a specific value. Change the loader state model to include the source. Then in the HTTP interceptor, set the source on update state before HTTP starts and after it finalizes. In our pager control, we need to filter out the loader state changes for the specific source we are listening to. So we create a new input property called source and assign the filter to that value. Then in every pager control, we pass a specific source like pager 1 or pager 2. Pass the source from the pager to the HTTP calling function. Now testing. By clicking on either pagination button, you should see the change in appearance only to one button. Let's clean up a bit. Let's create a function in our interceptor to create and assign context so that we don't repeat ourselves.